This doesn't have your name on it.
Kids, won't you step outside for a second?
There's something magical about watching a TV character grow over time. Week after week, season after season, you get to know them, their quirks, their catchphrases, their big wins, and humiliating fails. They become part of your routine, almost like friends you hang out with in your living room. And if you grew up in the late 80s, 90s, or early 2000s, you know exactly what I mean. You didn't just watch these characters, you quoted them at school, you debated their storylines, and you maybe even taped episodes on VHS so you wouldn't miss a moment. But here's the thing. Sometimes the characters we love the most changed. And not just the natural kind of change that happens when people grow. I'm talking about the, wait, who is this person kind of change? The kind where you go back to season 1 and realize it's like watching a completely different character. Sometimes those changes made the character more entertaining. Other times they took away exactly what made us love them in the first place. So let's take a look back at 8 TV characters who changed so much over the seasons that it'll make you do a double take and maybe even question if you were watching the same show all along. Starting at number 1 is Steve Urkel. When Family Matters debuted in 1989, it was about the Winslow family, a relatable, everyday Chicago household. Steve Urkel was just supposed to be a one-episode wonder, the nerdy next-door neighbor who'd pop in for a laugh and disappear. Except audiences loved him. The suspenders, the high-pitched voice, the awkward charm, the now iconic, "Did I do that?" It was instant TV magic. The writers saw dollar signs and leaned in hard.
What's mine? We're making down, my laddie.
Before long, Urkel wasn't just popping in, he was the star. And not just in a more screen time kind of way. We're talking teleporters, cloning experiments, and his alter ego Stefan Urkel, the smoothest man in sitcom history. The family-centered sitcom we started with slowly turned into a cartoonish sci-fi comedy. So then why the change? Ratings. Urkel tested through the roof with audiences, and ABC wasn't about to let that go. The problem though? The Winslows became side characters in their own show, and the grounded warmth of those early seasons faded into wacky hijinks. In the number 2 spot is Kelly Bundy. Early Kelly Bundy was smart in her own way. Not book smart, sure, but sharp-tongued, confident, and able to verbally spar with her dad Al. But over time, her intelligence became the punchline. She went from being a streetwise teen to barely understanding the simplest situations. Whole episodes revolved around her not knowing how basic things worked, all for the sake of a laugh.
Excuse me, Mr. Shoe Daddy. What a wonderful selection of women's shoes.
By the later seasons, she was the textbook dumb blonde stereotype. Funny? Absolutely, but if you compare season 1 Kelly to season 10 Kelly, you'd swear you were looking at 2 completely different characters. What changed here is that the show thrived on broad, outrageous comedy, and Kelly's cluelessness was easy to exaggerate. It got laughs, but at the cost of the layered character she once was. Number 3 brings us Carlton Banks, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Carlton started as the perfect counterbalance to Will's street smart cool. He was preppy, polite, and proudly out of step with pop culture. He was the guy who'd rather listen to Tom Jones than Tupac, and that's exactly why we loved him. In the early years, Carlton's uptight nature led to some of the show's funniest moments. But by the final seasons, he'd become more of a cartoon version of himself. The Carlton dance wasn't just a gag anymore, it was the thing.
Jingle bell, jingle bell.
His reactions were bigger, the comedy broader, and the sincere moments fewer. The audience loved funny Carlton, and the writers delivered. But as they cranked up the comedy, they dialed down the realness that made him such a great foil for Will. Number 4 has us recalling TGIF with Eric Matthews' Boy Meets World. At first, Eric was the cool older brother, quick-witted, laid-back, and occasionally wise. He gave Corey advice, made sarcastic comments, and could carry his own subplot without needing to be over the top. Then somewhere around season 5, Eric's IQ seemed to plummet. He became goofy to the point of absurdity, doing bizarre things just to get a laugh. Fans often joke about season 1 Eric and season 6 Eric as if they're 2 different people, and in a way they are.
Eric, you're not even in this class.
Someone who is perfectly fine does not let some world-famous super-duper explorer guy who's 5 times the man you'll ever be swoop in and take your booty.
Will Friedle had great comedic timing and the audiences loved silly Eric. The writers leaned into it, and before long, the early grounded big brother was replaced by a lovable goofball with barely a tether to reality. Number 5 is sure to give you a dose of 90s nostalgia, but before we reveal the character, if you're enjoying this video, give us a thumbs up to show that you're liking it, and you want us to keep cranking out similar content, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Okay, here we go. Number 5 is none other than Homer Simpson. In the early years, Homer was a bit of a bumbling dad. Lazy at times, not the brightest, but with a big heart. He loved his family and even had moments of genuine wisdom hidden deep under the beer and donuts. But over time, Homer evolved, or devolved, into Jerk Homer. He became more selfish, reckless, and cartoonishly dumb.
Dad, this doesn't have your name on it.
Kids, won't you step outside for a second?
The relatable working class dad of the early 90s turned into a gag machine who'd blow the family savings on something ridiculous without batting an eye. The show's humor got bigger and wilder, and Homer had to match it. The trade-off? Fewer tender margin Homer moments, more absurd adventures that could never happen in real life. Number 6 is the man himself, Al Bundy. Al Bundy was always bitter, sarcastic, and stuck in a miserable rut. That was his whole deal. But in the first few seasons, you'd still catch a glimpse of a man who cared for his family, even if he'd never admit it. By the later years, those softer moments were almost gone. Al became pure cynicism, a man whose only joy in life was insulting his wife, complaining about work, and reminiscing about his one high school football game.
Now, when Gary comes in, I want you to act like you're a customer. If you do a good job, Gary will think that these are really ladies' shoes.
Like Kelly, Al's bitterness became his brand, and as the show chased bigger laughs, they doubled down on that trait until there wasn't much else left. Number 7 on our list is Joey Tribbiani. Joey started as the lovable, slightly dim, aspiring actor, not the sharpest guy in the group, but capable of real insight when it counted. By the later seasons, Joey had lost nearly all common sense. He became almost childlike in his cluelessness, often failing to understand the simplest situations.
If the Homo sapiens were in fact Homo sapiens, is that why they're extinct?
Joey's naivety got laughs, and Matt LeBlanc played it perfectly. But as the show leaned on that trait, the balance between lovable goofball and functioning adult shifted heavily toward the former. And last but not least, at number 8, is the awkward, lovable goofball, Screech. In the early days, Screech was the lovable nerd with a heart of gold. He was awkward, sure, but he was also loyal and relatable, the kind of kid you might actually have known in school. As the seasons and spin-offs went on, Screech turned into a caricature. In the new class, his personality was cranked up so far that he seemed more like a cartoon sidekick than a real person.
Oh, kind of a 50-50 thing.
Exactly. And don't forget to disguise the handwriting. You wouldn't want me getting in any trouble.
The younger audience for the later seasons liked broad, slapstick humor, and Screech was the easiest character to exaggerate. Unfortunately, that meant losing the genuine charm he had early on. So why do characters change this way? There are several reasons why this happens, and it's worth unpacking. One big factor is audience reaction. If a certain quirk or trait consistently gets laughs, writers will often start building entire storylines around it. Then there's the influence of the actors themselves. When a performer nails a particular style of comedy, the writing naturally leans into their strengths, giving audiences more of what works. Add in the constant pressure of ratings, where networks push to keep numbers high by spotlighting whatever's popular, even if it becomes exaggerated, and you've got a recipe for change. Finally, as a show's overall tone shifts over time, characters are often reshaped to fit that new style, sometimes evolving far from what they started. Remember when watching TV meant catching your favorite show the moment it aired, when missing an episode meant hoping to catch a rerun months later? Back then, you watched these characters grow and change, right along with you. Sometimes those changes made them even more fun to watch. Other times, they left you wondering what happened to the person you first met in Season 1. Either way, these shifts are part of what makes revisiting old shows so interesting. It's like opening a time capsule and seeing not just the characters change, but how TV itself evolved over the years. If there's one thing we've learned, it's that TV may change, but nostalgia never does.